a brief video on how you will go about choosing the multiple choice questions that are assigned to you. Now, again, typically during our week segments or our weekly segments, you're assigned a number of multiple choice questions to complete. And you can find those multiple choice questions obviously as part of your syllabus. You can click on your syllabus and click on your assignments. You can see the multiple choice questions. Also, you can find those same multiple choice questions assigned under announcements. And here you can see tasks for weeks beginning 122, 129, and 25. And you can see under here, under graded assignments, under Roman numeral 1, 140 multiple choice question practice set for categories 1A and 1B, and it's assigned and it'll be due on February the 4th. Also, you can find the same information under course content, and you can see right here course content weeks beginning of January the 22nd, and you can see again the exact same information from the announcements in the syllabus. Now again, what this says is with item number 2, you need to complete 140 multiple choice questions from categories 1A and 1B, and those have to be completed by February the 4th. So the question is, how do you complete those? Okay, the multiple choice questions are not in the Blackboard classroom. They're actually in the Surgeon CPA Review module, so we're going to have to go there. Now you can either access it through the access site that was provided to you through when Surgeon provided you your sign-up instructions, or you can use your user sign-on and your password through the Blackboard classroom and click on Surgeon CPA Review Log On. So in this case now I have to enter my email address and password. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to log on to Surgeon CPA Review. Okay, now you're going to see a lot of information here. The most important thing you need to notice here is this top left-hand corner. It says auditing and attestation. It's critical that you make sure that your Surgeon CPA Review, your study module is set to this, because this is a subject matter we're studying. You can accidentally set, or your system can have been set to other modules within Surgeon. That includes regulation, financial accounting reporting, and business environment and concepts. You do not want to be set to any of those. You want to be set to auditing and attestation. Now, the Surgeon landing page can be a little daunting in that the Surgeon CPA Review is set up for two major audiences. The first audience and still the biggest audience are people who study for the CPA exam themselves. That's how what I call this real estate here on this web page, this landing web page, is oriented to. Your daily surge is all this pause session, study session, watch. This all pertains to your self-study work for Surgeon CPA Review. Now, the other method the other thing that Surgeon is used for is classroom study, and that's what we're doing. So we're going to really kind of ignore this item that says your daily surge and go on past daily surge onto these 4 items here, which are basically the 4 major categories of the audit and attestation section of the CPA Review. Again, these are the 4 blueprint categories. And you can see the first category, or category 1, is ethics, professional responsibilities, and general principles. And what it also tells you, these are generally 15 to 25% of the CPA exam. And this is also for category 2, category 3, category 4. And we'll be getting back to these particular items for some other features a little bit later on. But the most important feature when we're talking about selecting multiple choice question categories is this item called selective study section. So let's click on this. Okay, we click on the selective study section and we're given our 4 study categories again, category 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each of these categories are checked. Now, when we ask the system to select questions from the Surgeon database. If all these items are checked, that means all the questions from categories 1, 2, 3, and 4 have a chance of basically, since the database selects it at random, have an equal chance of being selected from the database out of categories 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, obviously we don't want that. We only want categories 1A and 1B. So the easiest thing is to uncheck all categories 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Now what we want to do is we want to drill down in category 1. We do that by clicking on category 1, and you can see the subcategories then pop out. And you can see none of the boxes are checked. But what I want to do is I want questions that are selected only from two categories. That's going to be category 1A and category 1B. All the other boxes, categories 1C, D, E, F, and G, will not be selected. Only category 1A and 1B, which is exactly what I want selected when from my assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Next now, knowing that all questions are going to be selected from 1A and 1B. I click on that, and now I have a selective study section box which pops up. And if I take a look at the right drop down box, I have a number of different options: adaptive, all new, last seen, trouble questions, missed last time. Okay, since we're doing a classroom type of question process, what we want to do is make sure we select nothing but, or we want to select all, meaning that all questions from 1A, categories 1A and 1B, have an equal chance of being selected. And does that mean we could have duplicate questions? And the answer is yes, but duplicate questions are okay because they help reinforce an individual's learning, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. The chances are you won't get many duplicates, but you could get them. So we do collect questions selected from all. Now the next item after that then is we then can select the type and duration of our session. In this case, when we do our drop down, we basically have an option: 5 questions, 10, 25, or 50 questions. It doesn't matter how many we select. We can do 5, and remember, we're required to do 140 questions, so we can do any combination of 5, 10, 25, and 50 to eventually hit a total of 140 questions. It doesn't matter. We can do 2 sets of 50 questions, followed by a set of 25, followed by a set of 10, and followed by a set of 5, as long as that all adds up to 140 questions or more. So you pick, as far as you're concerned, how many questions you want to do as part of a session. So let's go ahead and just pick the 5 question sessions, try begin session at this point. Okay, we're going to be presented then with our multiple choice questions, and you're given a couple of options at the top. In the very top, you have a help button, which is not a help button for the question. It's basically a help button for information in the application. You have a calculator, you have a spreadsheet. You can skip the question if you want. That again, it doesn't really hurt to skip the question if you don't necessarily know the answer. You can also mark it as guessed if you really don't know. This is information also the system software is going to be working with and assessing your performance. Also, you can simply exit the session. Now in this case, question number 1 is, according to the ethical standards of the profession, which of the following acts is generally prohibited? And the first one is purchasing a product from a third party and reselling it to a client. B, writing a financial management newsletter promoted and sold by a publishing company. C, accepted a commission for recommending a product to an audit client. And D, or 4, accepting engagements obtained through the efforts of third parties. So one of these are not acceptable through the professional code of conduct. So in this case, let's go ahead and let's just pick C. See if the answer is correct. In this case, the answer is correct, and you're told why it's correct. and through the code of conduct. Also, you're given video links if you want to review the information regarding this particular question on the code of conduct. Also, the Surgeon CPA review has a reference book for audit and attestation, and you can read through it. It's quite extensive, but it also gives you the reference to that particular question, commissions and referral fees. Okay, so we got that one correct, so we'll go on to the next question. And an exception to the percentage of coverage rule in the OMB's uniform guidance allows an auditor to reduce the scope of the audit when the entity is determined to be low risk. For an entity that meets the criteria for a low risk entity, the percentage of federal expenditures cover the audit can be reduced as low as, let's pick 50%. 50% is incorrect, and what we're told is the correct answer here we can see is 20%. We're told the item is incorrect, and it says when an entity requalifies as low risk, the scope of audits under the percentage of coverage rule can be reduced to as low as 20% of the federal funding spent by the agency. And we're given the relevant terms, and we're also given, if there was a video on it, there will be a reference to the video. And also, it's going to give us the reference to the audit and attestation workbook, which is the reference 3112.07. You can see the minimum coverage rule right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to go through these all 5 questions. I'm simply going to exit the session, and that's going to take me back to the Surgeon landing page. So now we know how to select questions 1A and 1B, or whatever questions were assigned, and we know we can do that with the combination of questions 5, 10, 25, and so forth to equal the number of questions that are required. In this case, it would have been 140 questions. So let's go ahead and exit the session. Okay, now we're back at the top of the landing page. And the important thing that we want to do right now is after we finish the session, sometimes we want to review how well we've done with the session. So we go ahead and click on the session and say, let me take a look at my session results. So in this case, I go down to my session results log, and I'm going to click on that. And my session's results log shall come up in just a few seconds. And now you can see the overall amount of time I'm spent on different sessions in terms of my audit and attestation. I've spent 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours in prep time. The average score I got was 63%. The total questions I answered was 87 in combination of all my sessions. Now in this case, what you can see here is this is a completed sessions log. And what I can do is I can go back to my individual dates at individual times, and I can see what type of sessions I've actually gone through. And in this case, let's try the completed session. I can go ahead and see my total, what I got totally correct versus the total sessions versus correct, what I've missed, and I can also view my individual sessions. In this case, there's a question number 1, and perform further procedures in obtaining audit evidence, and I can click on and review that particular session. So let's go back to the dashboard. And now let's take a look at how we go about reporting the multiple choice questions that we've just completed. Let's assume we're completing 140 multiple choice questions. Now what I want to do is I want to go back up to that little guy reading that little book up there, and I'm going to click on that, and now I go down to my progress report. My progress report is a cumulative report of all of my work to date based upon category. So let's take a look at when I click on that. Okay, I click on my progress report, and you can see now the information in terms of my detailed report. This is ethics professional responsibilities. This is category 1. And you can see from an overview standpoint, there's 387 questions. I've answered 27 questions correctly. My average trending score is 69%. So what it's showing is it looks like my score is improving over my average score. There's 345 questions I haven't seen yet, and I've had 44 total attempts, and this is the total time I spent in category 1. Now you can see by the individual categories 1A and 1B the information that is broken down. As an example, 1A, basically nature and scope, average score 33%. Total questions that are available under nature and scope is 49. I've answered 2 questions correctly. My trending score is going up 62%. Questions I haven't seen yet, 44. Total attempts, 6. And my total time in that section is 4 minutes and 2 seconds. I can go on to 1B then and do the same thing, 1C. You'll notice all these items within category 1 will total up to my session overview. So everything totals upward. I can even drill down further if I wish for category 1 and take a look at the individual subcategories underneath category 1A, and that would be 1A1, 1A2, and 1A3. Now, what you're going to see is I'm not going to require you to select your categories at that level. It's either going to be 1A, 1B, 1C. It's typically not going to be subcategories 1A1, 1A2, and so forth. So you don't normally have to worry about that. Plus, you're going to be recording on the general categories such as 1A and 1B, not the subcategories. So let's take a look now at how we're going to go ahead, and we're going to be required under our classroom, we require students to self-report their progress on their task-based simulations. So let's take a look at how we go about doing that. Now, in order to report the progress on your simulations, what we need to do is we need to go to our MCQ activity report section. In this case, it says MCQ activity report for categories 1A and 1B, which is what we want to report on, due on February the 4th. So we want to click on that section. Okay, we click on that section, and now what we see is submit task-based simulations for CATs 1A and 1B here. So in order to do that, you're given instructions here on how to do this, but what you can do is you click on the multiple choice question activity report for 1A and 1B. You click on that, and now you're going to open that report, and now you see the full report, summary of MCQ activity for categories 1A and 1B. Okay, now I'm going to reduce this report slightly so we can get a couple of other items in here. Okay, so this is essentially the report, and you can see it asks us to report on categories 1A and 1B. Now over here on the left-hand side, you can see the progress report that I had created from my last item here, or from my last demonstration here, and you can see now I need to report the MCQs attempted, and then followed by the average score, followed by the average trending score and the total time. So when I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the multiple choice questions that I have attempted, and in this case the total questions attempted for category 1A would be 6 questions right here, 6 questions. So the multiple choice questions attempted for category 1A would be 6. And I'm trying to, and I should be able to put the number 6 in here. Okay, followed by then the average score that I've achieved in category 1A, which would be 33%. Followed by my average trending score, which would be 62%, and followed by the total amount of time I have spent within category 1A, which in this case would be 4 minutes and 2 seconds. So this would be 04:02. And I would do the same thing for category 1B. In this case, the total questions I've attempted would be 23. The average score would be equal to, whoops, I'm sorry, would be 74%. The average trending score for 1B would be 87%. And the total amount of time I spent would be 29 minutes and 58 seconds. Okay, and I would do my additions here. Hopefully that would add up to 140 eventually. And basically this would be a report then you would save on your computer, and then when you save it on your computer, you would submit it through our website, where I simply then I'm going to have I'm going to attach that report as a file under Browse My Computer, and I have a lot of pictures here of Sedona. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'm going to assume this is a report. I'm just going to attach that picture in this particular case. So now I verified that I've attached that report, and then I go ahead and submit that report. I'm not going to submit it in this case. If you want to make any comments, you can do that. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out that's fairly important, let's go back to the document here. Now, it's assumed that every student's going to carefully study and select the appropriate answer for each question attempted. Each question should be read, analyzed, and answered after appropriate consideration. In other words, you don't look at something then check it off. If the student answers a question incorrectly, it's expected you as a student are going to basically review and understand the correct answer. And it's expected that the average time to complete a multiple choice question will be about 2 minutes per multiple choice question. Actually, if we take a look at the timing of in the CPA exam, it's about 1.5 minutes. I'm providing extra time as a buffer to people who need to be able to, if they got a question wrong, they could examine it and understand why they got it wrong. However, here's the caveat. Under certain circumstances, there can be a presumption that the student did not complete the multiple choice question set with the due care described in this previous paragraph. Such a presumption will automatically be assumed if the average completion time per multiple choice question is 1 minute or less, and the trending percentage questions answered is 25% or less. Under the circumstances, the student's attained score will be reduced by 20% or 20% of the points. The reason for that is I don't want students simply looking at a question and just checking it off. If you do that, you're going to statistically you're going to score at a certain level, and it will only take you a certain amount of time, and that information, those statistics are built into this particular paragraph. So if I see a person trying to game the system that way, they're automatically going to have points deducted. Now that doesn't mean you can't answer questions in less than 1 minute. It just means on the average. And I'm not going to necessarily invoke that rule unless I see a chronic problem. Now, the other thing I will mention also is that I get a separate report from Surgent CPA Review on every individual student's, and basically the same information, matter of fact, even more information than you see on this report that you submit to me. I can and have in the past cross-checked that report against student self-reporting results. And if I find students are misreporting information that is literally the same thing as cheating on the course, and it'll be dealt with that way. Again, for the most part, I don't expect graduate students would do that. I mean, would do that, but in case that can happen. Another thing here is you can also obviously write comments as part of your a part of your summary of MCQ activities. So with that, that kind of is in the nutshell of basically selecting and reporting multiple choice question activity. Thank you for your time.